Hello and welcome to the Squared Circle Psychobabble. My name is Michael Valenti. This is Ralph Valenti, and tonight we're going to decide which card today is the best going into it. Is it All Elite Wrestling, Double or Nothing, WWE Wrestlemania 35, or NXT Takeover? Before we get to that discussion, make sure you hit subscribe and hit that bell for notifications as we're trying to hit 5,000 YouTube subscribers before All Elite Wrestling, Double or Nothing. And follow us all over social media. We're on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at SCPB Podcast. So, Ralph, WrestleMania is 3 weeks away. Double or Nothing is 2 months away. And, of course, NXT TakeOver is going to be WrestleMania weekend. And these cards are looking better and better as the days go on. Which one do you think, going into today, is the card that, if all three shows were happening today, what show are you going to watch?
Right. So I looked at this from two different standpoints. I looked at the one that I feel like at face value was the best card at hand, and then I looked at the one that has the potential to be the biggest disappointment and the one to be the best overall. So when you look at the cards and compare them at face value, if I was as a casual fan walking down the street, you remember back when we were kids and they would have those posters that the circus would hang up whenever
Right.
If you were a casual fan and you were walking down the street and you lined up 3 posters with all the people that are involved with these shows, which one would I be most inclined to watch or be attracted to? And I got to go with WrestleMania. And that's simply because, you know, there are much more well-known wrestlers on the card. I'm not downplaying anything that anybody in All Elite Wrestling or NXT has done. It's just a simple fact. If you're in the WWE, you're more recognizable because you're promoted to the masses. Not only that, but you look at guys like Batista, who obviously has had success in Hollywood, Ronda Rousey, who's certainly marketable because of her success with the UFC, within the MMA community. That can attract certain people who may not want to necessarily watch a wrestling pay-per-view just to watch a wrestling pay-per-view. And then, of course, you get into the matches and you look at the star power for anywhere from Seth Rollins and Lesnar, Triple H, Batista, Kurt Angle, obviously having his swan song match. We'll see if he actually ends up winning that. Shane McMahon, The Miz. I think Double or Nothing has a great card.
Right.
I think that they're all going to deliver. All 3 shows will be good. But I think at hand right now, face value, if I were to line up each individual card, I think right now WrestleMania has the best card at face value.
Well, think about it this way with WrestleMania 35. You have 4, maybe 5 matches right now that could main event any WrestleMania if it were on different cards.
And those would be what?
Those would be Rollins and Lesnar.
Yep.
Ronda Rousey, Charlotte Flair, and Becky Lynch.
Yep.
Triple H and Batista. AJ Styles and Randy Orton. And Kofi Kingston and Daniel Bryan for the WWE Championship. Any one of those matches.
Assuming that happens, but more than likely that's
right.
Probably what we're going to get.
Well, we know, we're putting this up on Monday. We don't know what's happening on Tuesday with SmackDown where Kofi has that gauntlet match, but I would assume they're going to have him run the gauntlet and win to get him in the match. Now, whether it's a one-on-one or it ends up being a fatal 4 involving Mustafa and Kevin Owens, I don't know, but either way, even if those other 2 are involved, that's still a main event match in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Because of the way they're telling that story. And we knock WWE for their storytelling and how they're writing things, but they are hitting it right out of the park with this whole Kofi Kingston, Daniel Bryan, Kevin Owens, Mustafa Ali story. They're doing a great job with that. The build for Triple H and Batista, instantly invested.
Yeah.
From that last Monday. Instantly invested in AJ versus Randy Orton on their exchange of promos on Tuesday.
Very good.
Lesnar and Rollins, that's a main event anyway, given the names. And then, of course, Ronda Rousey, Charlotte Flair, and Becky Lynch. Everybody wants that to be the one that ends the show. In my opinion right now, I don't know if it is yet.
Well, I think the problem with that match is Becky Lynch has certainly cooled off. She's not as hot as she was. People aren't necessarily as invested in that match as they once were right after WrestleMania. Of the 4 that we're talking about here, I think that they've done the worst job kind of booking that and progressing the storyline. There's a number of reasons for that, which we won't get into for the sake of brevity with this. But, yeah, I got to agree. I don't know if that's going to main event anymore.
Right.
So... And then when I'm talking about the potential, so what I did was I compared what I feel like is going to happen with these shows, and then I kind of compared it to what has happened in the past. So WrestleMania is in a unique position because everybody considers that the grandest stage of them all. It's the biggest one. You know you're going to have about anywhere from like 80,000 to 90,000 people there. One of the biggest problems with WrestleMania, and we've been to WrestleMania before, is it's so damn long. And I think, given the star power, we might see a little bit of burnout. And we've seen that happen. That happened with Shinsuke Nakamura and AJ Styles, who didn't necessarily put on a great match, but the fans just weren't necessarily as into it because the show was so long and where it was kind of positioned.
But also at the same time with that match, going into WrestleMania, the build for it was not good at all. No. They were basically trying to get people to be invested in it just on the sheer fact that they would know what happened at Wrestle Kingdom.
Yeah, they promoted it as a dream match.
Right.
And they didn't do anything to actually get anybody invested. And that's the problem when you put two faces or two heels against each other. If people meet in the middle and they don't pick between the two and you can't get behind somebody like you're behind Kofi Kingston or like you were behind Daniel Bryan back when he won the title, the crowd falls flat.
Yeah.
And they're not invested.
Right.
So, yeah, there's that. And then obviously there's the fact that it's outdoors, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But when you're a fan who's watching at home, when you're inside a dome, or not necessarily
when you're
a dome,
inside,
when you're inside, the crowd sounds much more alive, where you don't realize how much that actually impacts it. So if I'm somebody at home and I'm watching this on my TV and I can't see if I can't physically hear the fans going crazy, I feel like it takes away from the match.
Of course.
So having the atmosphere and the ambiance, I think that's a big thing. And I think that's something that, being outside could play a role, especially given the fact that, like we said, there are so many big matches that combined with the burnout. And then you look at some of the matches. So you look at somebody like Triple H. He probably hasn't had a great singles match or a good singles match since his last match against Daniel Bryan.
Triple H? His match with Seth Rollins wasn't bad.
It wasn't bad, but it doesn't lead me to believe that him and Batista are going to go out there and steal the show. And that's the problem.
Or what about his match with Ambrose at Fastlane?
I mean, he's had good matches here and there, but I think part of the problem is with WWE specifically, we focus so much on the storyline because,
of course,
and that's important. And I've always felt like storylines are important because, especially with WWE, they're doing this on a weekly basis. They have to progress a storyline and keep fans invested in it. Sometimes the storyline is written very well and the payoff isn't always there. And I think that could be something that we do see with Batista and Triple H, given the fact that Triple H is older. He is coming back from an injury. Batista hasn't wrestled since 2014. So given the storyline might be good up until WrestleMania, there's no guarantee that match is going to be good.
I can understand that.
And that could turn out like one of the matches like Sting and Triple H had, where it was extremely overbooked. Ric Flair could get involved. And, at the end of the day, do I trust WWE to deliver on all of these matches? And looking back at what they've done, Daniel Bryan and Sheamus as an example, just one example, I can't say I'm confident in them going out there and actually giving the fans what they want and then delivering in the ring at the same time. Not because the wrestlers can't do it, because they won't give them time or there'll be a cheap finish or something. I just don't trust them to go out there and do it.
I can understand that, but I was trying to think of another WrestleMania that had this many main event caliber matches on the card. The only one that really came to mind was WrestleMania 8. Mm-hmm. And that was Hogan and Sid. Then you had Flair and Savage. You had Piper and Bret Hart all on that card. You had The Undertaker and Jake the Snake Roberts on that card. Shawn Michaels versus Tito Santana on that card. So, I mean, not all of them at that time in 1992 were main event caliber matches.
Sure.
But given their careers and where they ended up, that's 5 or 6 potential WrestleMania main events given a different time. This one here, they're all at the right time for them to main event a WrestleMania. Maybe Triple H and Batista's a little past that, but still, I mean, I think a lot of people are going to be sleeping on AJ Styles versus Randy Orton. I think a lot of people like that there, especially because in his WWE run, AJ Styles matches have not lived up to people's expectations.
For the most part.
For the most part.
Unless he's been in there with Cena or Daniel Bryan.
Or Brock Lesnar.
But yeah, we've talked about that multiple times on the show, and that's one of those type of matches. AJ and Orton, they're more than capable of going out there and stealing the show or having a good match. But one, is WWE going to give them the time?
Mm-hmm.
And two, are they going to actually go out there and do what everyone thinks they're capable of doing? I don't know.
Here's the thing: you bring up time. Obviously, the card is still to be built with 3 weeks left. We don't have a match for Asuka. We don't have a match. We don't have an official match for either tag team titles.
Female tag team title.
We don't have an official match for the female tag team titles. I'm assuming they're going to have the Battle Royals again, whether or not they're on the pre-show or not.
Yep.
You have Nia Jax and Tamina being teased with a match against Natalya and Beth Phoenix.
Yep.
Whether that comes to fruition at WrestleMania or it's involved with the women tag titles, who knows? So there's a lot of matches put in there. And of course, Buddy Murphy versus whoever wins the Cruiserweight tournament.
Yep.
So yes, this card could be ending up, 15 to 18 matches.
Strowman, we don't know.
Strowman's got to do something. Drew McIntyre and Roman Reigns are possibly a match. There's a lot to go on, and this could end up being a 6-hour pay-per-view.
Yeah.
6 hours.
And
that's not counting the pre-show.
Yeah. Like I said, that's one of my concerns, given the fact that it is going to be so long. Is the crowd going to get burnt out? We'll find out because we're going to be there in person. Not only that, but if you think of this, if you're one of the people that has plans on this being like a WrestleMania weekend and you're going to go to
Access, Takeover.
Yeah, NXT, then maybe you go to the G1 Supercard, and then maybe you go to WrestleMania. You might be burnt out before WrestleMania even starts.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a really long day. So yes, WrestleMania, on paper, it looks like it should be one of the best pay-per-views, maybe one of the best WrestleManias of all time. But I have my concerns. And that's the only thing I wanted to say about that. Now, of course, they could go out there and steal the show. I hope they do that because, that's what's best for the company. That's what's best for the fans. Double or Nothing, on paper, that's a great one. I think that's actually the one, me personally, I think that's going to be the best card of the three. Some of the concerns I have with that is Kenny Omega. He hasn't worked a match since having his match against Tanahashi. Now, do I think he's going to come in there out of shape and he's not going to have a great match? Of course not. I don't think that. I'm just throwing it out there because it's something to be considered. Cody Rhodes, we don't know who he's going to face yet. He's coming back from an injury, so there's that. I was going to mention the Young Bucks, obviously not being as active, but of course, last night they did win the AAA tag team titles from the Lucha Brothers, so
and
they're somewhat active.
They've had their run-ins at independent shows like Cody did before he had his surgery, Hangman Page as well.
Yep.
Looking at that card, we have Kenny versus Jericho 2. We have Hangman versus Neville or Pac. Young Bucks versus the Lucha Brothers. The triple threat women's match, Britt Baker, Nyla Rose, and Kylie Ray. The over-the-budget battle royal, SoCal versus the OWE triple tag team, and then Cody versus mystery opponent. While in ring, this might end up being a great show. The problem that I have is outside of Kenny and Jericho, there's not a match here that I'm saying, oh my God, this is a main event. Oh my God, I have to see this. I mean, maybe the other one is the Bucks and the Lucha Brothers, but compared to WrestleMania's card, and yes, this is somewhat, it's hard to compare the two because WrestleMania 1 is going to be a much longer show with a much deeper roster, and Double or Nothing, it's their first show in a brand new company, and, they're still trying to fill out their entire roster. So, there is mystique in the mystery opponent of Cody.
Sure. And
we might not know until that night who his opponent is. Kurt Angle, on the other hand, will know his mystery opponent, tonight.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So tonight, if you're watching this Monday morning or Monday afternoon before Raw. So that's where I kind of see the possibility that this could fall flat.
Double or Nothing?
Double or Nothing, because yes, the tickets sold fast. Yes, there were people in line to buy tickets. But at the same time, where is that mid-card that's going to fill and get people excited for the main event that could carry over to the main event?
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
I kind of get what you're saying. I think that Pac and Adam Page is going to be a good match, and that's kind of what you're alluding to. You also got to remember, so WWE is in a unique, it's in a different position than
Of
All
course
Elite
it
Wrestling
is.
because they do have the weekly shows like Raw and SmackDown where they can progress a storyline and get people invested. Now,
But-
on the other hand, that can also hurt them because Royal Rumble, everybody assumes that's the starting point of the road to WrestleMania. There's a lot of time. There's 2 pay-per-views in between that and WrestleMania and a lot of months in between. For All Elite Wrestling, they actually, I think they benefit from not having TV right now because aside from a couple run-ins, aside from being the Elite and some things that you see on YouTube, they can't really make mistakes. It's kind of like, okay, this is the match. You're going to get the match. And they don't have a reason. There's no reason for people to not get invested in a match that they're already excited about.
True, but there's also, they announced on January 1st that All Elite Wrestling was happening and that Double or Nothing is happening on May 25th. That's almost 6 months to try to promote a show without any weekly television.
Yep.
You're basically relying on social media and YouTube to build this show.
Yep.
Yes, you sold out the arena, but then now you have to focus on pay-per-view buys and you have to focus on streaming and all that stuff. And I'm sure there's going to be people that are going to buy it and people are going to stream it because there are the diehard wrestling fans that All Elite Wrestling are hooked to. We get that. We understand that. But to succeed in any business, you need to get more than just the diehards. You need to get the casual fans to come back. And, you know, that's the thing that I think a lot of people are missing the point on with All Elite Wrestling is that they think there's going to be quick, indirect competition to WWE because as soon as Double or Nothing happens, the war has begun. Honestly, it's going to be a while if it even gets to that point because you have to get the... I was listening to a podcast, Matt Men podcast, and they were explaining the 3 tiers of marketing, P1, P2, P3. They already got the P1. It's the P2 and the P3 that WWE is able to keep that the Ring of Honors, the New Japans, the All Elite Wrestling. Those are the ones that they have to grab and hold on to succeed as a business and compete with WWE if that's what they're going for.
If you look at like a bell curve of sales, so that's something that people use in business to kind of dictate where what percentage of the market or how much saturation you have. Right now, All Elite Wrestling is right at the very beginning of that. So you got like you said, you got the diehards, and then you have to make it past a certain percentage, and they have something called the chasm where you either go past that, where you have the connection between the two. I think it's the early adopters and the early majority, right? And in between those two is the chasm. And if you can't get past that, usually you go out of business. That's usually what happens with a product or a business. To your point, I agree. People need to understand that this is a business. The Khan family could have as much money as they want, but they need to be generating revenue. Now, Double or Nothing, I think, can go out there and have a great show. But like you said, they have to be able to appeal to the masses at some point if they're going to sustain themselves. That being said, I do feel like more pressure is on WWE right now because if they go out there and they bomb, or for whatever reason, WrestleMania doesn't live up to expectations, which, let's be honest, it's likely because the last several WrestleManias, I mean, haven't been memorable. To me, the most memorable WrestleMania moment and that I can think back to was the story with Daniel Bryan, having him win the title. Do you agree?
The Seth cash-in.
Yeah, I guess you could say that, but
also, let's not forget that the last 4 WrestleManias were main evented by Roman Reigns, and there were a lot of fans that were upset that he kept main eventing WrestleManias. Let's look at the Undertaker match.
Yeah.
Undertaker versus Roman Reigns was not a main event match at that time. It wasn't for a belt, and the build wasn't that great.
The streak had ended at that point.
The streak was already over. So why was that the main event? Because it was alluding to The Undertaker's retirement, which we know did not happen because he had 2 matches after that. So that there, I think, turned a lot of people off. And that WrestleMania was the first of, oh my God, these are long. Either 32 or 33. That's when you started to realize these WrestleManias are way too long.
Yeah.
But I think this year, if you look at the past 2 pay-per-views, they're much quicker and they're more fast-paced. So I think they might continue this trend. And, you know, there might be a lot of matches, but some of these matches, these like lower card matches, they're not going to last long. They're not going to give them time. They want these 5 matches that I mentioned, the Rollins and Lesnar, the triple threat match, Triple H and Batista, AJ and Randy and Kofi and Daniel Bryan, they want those to be 20 minutes each.
Yeah.
And that's, 20 times 5, 100 minutes. You're looking at an hour and a half, over an hour and a half for those 5 matches right there.
Yep.
The rest of the card can fill the other 3 hours and you're done.
So since you mentioned that, why don't we move on to the latter of the 3 shows? Because NXT seems to be the show, the takeovers, for whatever reason, that has found that sweet spot between the amount of time that the matches are going to go, the amount of matches that they're going to present to the crowd. They seem to have got it right. Mm-hmm. But for whatever reason, and I think we can kind of identify some of those reasons right now, fans don't seem as hyped up or into this NXT specifically as they have been in previous ones. Do you agree?
Well, in a way, yes, but I am seeing other wrestling podcasts and wrestling news outlets that are actually considering this the best NXT takeover card ever.
I don't agree with that. But
now, for those that, spoiler warning here, these are the matches for the NXT Takeover New York WrestleMania weekend. War Raiders versus Ricochet and Aleister Black for the tag team titles. Mm-hmm. Velveteen Dream versus Matt Riddle for the NXT North American Championship. A fatal 4-way for the women's championship match, which is Shayna Baszler, Io Shirai, Kairi Sane, and Bianca Belair. Pete Dunne versus Walter for the United Kingdom Championship. And Johnny Gargano versus Adam Cole in a 2 out of 3 falls for the NXT Championship. Yep. All 5 of those matches, easily 4 or more stars.
It could be. It has like I said, it has the potential to be. I think one of the things that hurts this a little bit is we all assumed we were going to get the blow off to Gargano and Ciampa, and we were going to see Gargano go over Ciampa. And obviously, that's not going to happen. I know that's the thing that I was looking forward to the most because, like I've said, I've been very vocal about this. I feel like that's been the best storyline in all of wrestling for the last year and a half, probably. Mm-hmm. We're not going to get that, but all the other matches on paper, like you said, I think they're more than capable of delivering. I just think that, you have like Ricochet and Aleister Black. That's kind of a weird tag team.
It is.
I don't get it. Aleister Black to me should be more of a loner, dark character, but they're not really promoting him that way. And, I'm not saying Ricochet and Aleister Black aren't a good tag team, and I'm not saying I'm not looking forward to that match, but it's just odd to me.
Yeah.
The pairing is odd. Obviously, they've called up a bunch of people. But other than that, the matches should be good. The one I'm looking forward to most is probably Pete Dunne and Walter.
I agree. Sure I agree. I am such a mark for Walter right now. I can't wait for that match and just to be in person to hear those Walter chops. Yep. But I'm also a big Velveteen Dream guy, and I love to see Velveteen Dream versus Matt Riddle.
Yep.
I've heard a lot of buzz about Matt Riddle. Only seen what he's done in NXT and a couple of matches on YouTube. So I'm interested to see how he is in a big NXT TakeOver top match. He is a good wrestler from what I've seen, but I think I'm interested to see how the crowd is going to react to Gargano versus Adam Cole in a 2 out of 3 falls because both are portrayed as heels right now or kind of tweeners, but the crowd just pops for both of them. You have the Adam Cole baby and everyone supporting Johnny Wrestling for the last year and a half in NXT. I'm interested to see, 1, who wins, and 2, who the crowd is going to be more into. It's very Ultimate Challenge-esque, the way this is going to be in the crowd that night. You're going to get the Garganos, let's go Gargano, and then Adam Cole, let's go Johnny, Adam Cole. Yeah. I feel like that's going to happen a lot.
And that's what we were talking about before, because I'm a big fan of Johnny Gargano. I'm also a really big fan of Adam Cole. And right now, I don't know who I'm going to cheer for. I really don't know. And we'll be there for that as well. But
if you're wearing your Adam Cole t-shirt and rooting for Gargano, that's kind of hypocritical in my opinion. And that's just wrong on all accounts.
Not necessarily. But so why don't we just rate these 3? Which one do you think is going to be the best for the best of the worst?
Best of the worst, I think WrestleMania 35 is going to be the best. Mm-hmm. Followed by TakeOver, followed by Double or Nothing. And I think all 3 are going to be great shows. I'm not saying Double or Nothing is going to be a bad show. I just think WrestleMania, given their card is too big to fail.
I've said that for the past maybe 5 years.
This card here is way better than the last 5 years.
Okay. Well, here's my 3. So I have Double or Nothing. I think that's going to be the best. I have NXT coming in at 2. I think that will still deliver despite not having the Gargano Ciampa match that everyone was kind of hoping we'd get to see. And last but not least, for the reasons I talked about, just looking back at recent history, some of the things WWE has done at WrestleManias, I don't trust that they're going to be able to deliver on all accounts and what the fans are expecting. I certainly don't trust that they'll give us Kofi Kingston, Becky Lynch, and a Seth Rollins win. There's no way we get all 3 of those, which are the big 3 things that I think the fans want. I think WrestleMania, of the 3, will disappoint the most. For that reason, I'm giving it the third and final on the these 3.
All right.
So.
All right. Well, let us know by voting in the poll above my head right now. You could comment below your thoughts on anything from WrestleMania, Double or Nothing, or NXT Blacklist, or NXT TakeOver New York. And of course, if you want to know more about our discussions with All Elite Wrestling and WWE, make sure you subscribe and hit that bell for notifications, as we're trying to hit 5,000 YouTube subscribers before All Elite Wrestling, Double or Nothing. For Ralph Valenti, my name is Michael Valenti, and thank you for watching the Squared Circle Psychobabble.